Ralph Silva of Silva Research Network. He joins me now. Ralph, we've just listened to that. I mean, we've gone from £2 billion profit, £500 million loss. This is a risky place to invest, isn't it, Lloyd's of London?
It's interesting to say that, because this is exactly what's supposed to happen. The reason why they make such big profits is so they can fill their coffers. So when you have a year like this, which really happens every 10 to 15 years, you actually have the ability to pay this off. I actually think that Lloyd's of London is doing exactly what they should be doing, and doing it incredibly well.
What's the impact for the end insurance market? Because these guys are going to ramp their premiums. Surely it's going to hurt insurers' premium.
I think they're going to ramp their premiums, but not as much as people think. It's going to be a very small amount, and they have to ramp their premiums simply because they have to compensate for some of this. But at the $102 billion, which is an enormous number, it's not just Lloyd's of London. Lloyd's of London is probably the one that's going to be hurt the least because they had the biggest capital. It's going to be some of the smaller firms that are going to have to ramp them up a little bit more just to compensate for that.
Got to ask you, as you look at the market, we're just talking about companies there, reinsurers or insurers, what's the standout for you? Where would you prefer to be?
To be honest with you, I pick individual organizations.
Okay.
I wouldn't go wholehearted and say it's just reinsurers or insurance, because I think the operations, the way they're running the businesses is extremely important. So I'm very keen on Generali as an example. I'm keen on Allianz. I think those two organizations are two that are doing an incredibly good job in making sure they do catastrophe management in a better way than the vast majority of them. Of course, Lloyd's of London also does that, but they're a little bit more difficult to invest in.
And in terms of the overall position in the market, you still think for the rest of the year this is a sector that you would look at?
I do, because I don't suspect we're going to have another Japan-type earthquake. I'm hoping we don't have another one.
Sure.
I think those kind of catastrophes, all within such a confined period, is a rare thing. So I think it's a fairly reasonable bet to actually invest in them in the long term. And as a matter of fact, I put them ahead of banks. I think insurance first, banks second.
Mario Monti's calling the end of the crisis in Italy. Has the worst passed for UniCredit and the Italian banks?
Actually, I think so, and I think it all has to do with Monti. And no disrespect to the previous Italian governments, but finally we have a professional face to the Italian management, and I think that investors are flocking back into Italy because prior to Monti, the banks were quite frankly undervalued.
Does Monti taking charge, a bureaucrat, is it really having that tremendous impact? Is he responsible for moving these bond yields from 7 to 5
Yes.
on the 10-year bonds?
Yes, he is. And at the same rate, it was the British government and the French government that were responsible for saving the banks. It very much became a political story. Banks right now are very much interlinked with the politics. And if the politics are better, the banks are better. In Italy, we have a perfect example of that.
What's the risk that if the ECB pull back in terms of liquidity, that we see another crisis, a liquidity crisis in Italian banks, European banks?
We might actually have another liquidity crisis regardless of what happens, but in this case, it's going to be the very small banks. What we've noticed is that the vast majority of the large banks in Europe are all relatively well capitalized. Yes, they're going to have a little bit of stress when new regulations come in at the end of this year, but we feel they're all going to be able to do this. It's the smaller to medium-sized banks that we're all concerned about, and that means Spain is a problem.
Well, I was just going to ask you very quickly, in 10 seconds, of the banks, who would be the big ones that you would consider buying?
BBVA, Banco Santander, HSBC, BNP Paribas. The bigger the better in this case. Big right now means safety.
Big is beautiful, big is safety. Ralph Silva, thanks for your time.